Welcome to another episode of the Deep Blue Podcast, where we have bold conversations that equip Christian entrepreneurs with the clarity, confidence, and tools you need to build a business that impacts lives and builds God's kingdom. Today, I am pumped and really excited to have on a friend of mine. Max is the CEO of two growing businesses, TriPak and PerformLED. They're based in Canada, but they're in Canada and the US. And we got connected about a year and a half ago, have been working together on various aspects of the business, but I love his heart for God and his heart for people. And we always have an amazing conversation together. So I have been looking forward to having him as a guest on the podcast for, it's got to be at least a year, ever since I started doing these podcasts. So I'm really excited that it finally worked out. We were able to schedule some time. Max, welcome to the Deep Blue Podcast.
Thank you. It's very good to be here. The last year has been a bit of a whirlwind, but it's been a pleasure getting to know you and just, I don't know, you've helped me extract my brain and learn different things as well, and learn things more about who I am too. So it's just been exciting. So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, hey, let's get started. One of the things that I want people to hear is your story, your journey with God. I think there's a lot of people out there that, they feel some kind of drawing to business, right? But at the same time, there's this maybe I was raised Christian, or maybe I grew up in the church or something like that. And there's a lot of, I think, attitude of like those two things, they don't meet, they don't mix. But what I'm starting to see God do is going through a movement of maybe combining those things, and then a movement where it doesn't matter. We don't even ask that question. We are sold out disciples to Jesus on a daily basis, and it's every area that God gives us influence, He gives us impact. We bring and we let the Holy Spirit direct us. We let Him speak to us. We let Him give us wisdom. But I think there's a lot of different opinions, so to speak, out there in the body of Christ of what that looks like. I think both of us have run up against that, being passionate about faith and about business. But I want to hear from your perspective. How did you get serious about Jesus?
It's an excellent question. I like to think that I always was, but I became a believer, or came to faith, whatever you want to call it, when I was very young. I can't honestly even tell you the age, probably around 6 to 8-ish. And,
That's awesome.
So that was my intro to that. I grew up in a Christian home, and kind of went through the motions. To me, it was real. It always was real, but I never had depth to it. I didn't really learn the Bible other than the basics. The Bible at its core, like, David and Goliath, all the main Bible stories you learn growing up. That's really what I learned. But I didn't really learn the depth and who Jesus was to me, and to others, and to everyone. I'm getting married fairly young, 20, I think I was 21-ish, or 21 years old. So that kind of set me on a course where we kind of went through some challenges with the church that we were attending. So we actually left. And my wife was a part of that. She's been also a pastor's kid her whole life. We've had similar, what would you call it, backgrounds, but a little bit different. I kind of grew up in a business household as well.
Yeah.
Where I didn't work illegally very young, but I was there. It's like working on the farm. You're just there to help. And
For
I
sure.
honestly, it's not that I
I think we
hated
need a
it,
lot
because
more of that, just to be honest. Like, that's dads really pouring into their kids, giving them a chance to learn a skill set. Like, yeah, we need
exactly.
more of that as fathers in business, I think.
100%. Yeah. And so I do value that highly, because the things I learned then help me now. And all the way through, and it's kind of it's given me a mindset of growth and entrepreneurship.
So
And
what was that first job? So mine was cutting grass for my neighbor, taking our family tractor to our neighbor who had like, I don't know, 5 acres, and literally just driving around for a couple hours on a Saturday. I was probably 10.
yeah.
That was
Yeah.
my first like, job, so to
Job.
speak. What about for you?
Well, it depends. So what my dad built, like I learned to run a skid steer at about 6 years old.
Okay.
So I was
Yeah,
I
that
was
sounds
in
like a blast for a
kindergarten.
6-year-old.
Yeah, I was about grade one. Yeah. And so I learned that, but that wasn't really work. That was kind of just messing around at home. I built my own bike jumps and stuff like that. Work was more like, so my dad started, or my parents started a couple car washes, and through building them, I worked kind of helping concrete forms, like tearing stuff apart, basic stuff here and there, kind of through the summer. And then once the car washes were operating, that was about a year or two later. So I would have been probably eight, eight
Okay.
years old. Then I was a bay hand. So a bay hand, you just wash down the bays to keep it clean for all the new customers coming in. The biggest thing is like all the car washes around were very dirty, grungy, and they never really kept it clean. So we'd have lineups because we tried to operate a good business, or at least my parents did. And so we'd have lineups. So like you'd have
So you had lines
one
of
vehicle.
cars waiting for your car wash.
Exactly. So the vehicles would pull out, and like we would have to be on the ball. Our job was to get that thing washed and clean, whether it's squeegee down or wash it down, depending on how fast you could do it before the next car came in, so that they had a clean bay to wash it. So
Nice.
the standard was very high compared to the surrounding competition. And so like a lot of the people that were hired were like high school kids. They're 16, 17 years old. I was like 8.
You having to keep up with high school kids as an 8-year-old? That's pretty cool.
So, and then whenever somebody called in sick or there was like nobody around to take a shift and I was available, I was the release. So, so I got paid, you know, cash, very little, like $2 an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's just part of growing up. So that was my first real like thing. And then that kind of moved forward.
I'm
And my
starting
parents,
off my 3-year-old with quarters for chores.
100%. That's great.
So he
I love
gets
it.
those the box cars, and it was really
Yeah.
funny because like so I'm trying to teach him business principles starting off, and the first time like we go to Walmart and he buys a car, we're walking out and he goes, "Dad, where's my dollar?" And I was like, "Well, you gave it to the lady to get your car," and he's like, "That seems wrong. I want my coins." And I was like, "Well, you
Right.
wanted your car."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because I've been thinking a lot
That's
about that of like how do you instill business skills in the next generation, and I think there's a lot that just having a solid work ethic, being willing to put in the hours on a task that's not fun, it's not video games, it's not watching TV, it's just it is what it is, and being able to do that and learn, that is, I think, one of the most important skill sets to start off is do something uncomfortable, or maybe, you know, maybe it's not your favorite thing to do. It's not getting an ice cream, but
yeah, it
put in the
stretches you. It
time,
stretches your
you know?
thinking. So you have to like think and figure things out. I think that is I think it's important. I think, one of the one of the things my dad did. So like if I wanted something like remote control truck, this is just one example because I physically remember it.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's like I want that. Cost whatever it was, $100. I don't know what it was back then. But he'd be like, all right. He'd be like, all right, you can have it now, but it's gonna cost you $120 and you'll just have to pay it back over time. Or you can just save up and then pay for it yourself.
Wow, it's like a mini
And then
credit card lesson right there.
exactly. Yeah. So I didn't learn it in the conventional sense. I learned it that way.
Did you ever
And
take him up
so
on the no, I want it now and then have to pay it back?
I waited.
See, that's a skill set too, just learning patience.
Yeah.
And
So, and I think
yeah, wow.
that's probably why I'm not really, well, when you're in business, you kind of have to learn that, like, because that's important, because you can plan, you can execute, but sometimes God's plan is a little bit different, and it doesn't always go exactly the way you want it to. You can go in a direction, but he 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 has a bigger plan, and you just
For
don't quite
sure.
know what that looks like and what the end point, or not end point, but like what the future holds.
Yeah, I used to a couple of years ago, just starting out with God, have this perspective of, well, I want to know, believe it or not. I told somebody, I was like, I got a 50-year plan. And they're like, what? Like, I don't know what I'm doing Monday.
Yeah, yeah,
And I feel and I
exactly.
feel like the more that I've matured, the more that I've grown up in Christ and in his word, the more I've realized I don't need to know. This was an interesting lesson this last year. I feel like he had me learn is you don't need to know the why to be obedient. And that was tough for me because I'm a very analytical
Ooh.
person. And
Mhm.
there was a moment I learned it when my wife and I we were kind of on the fence for a pretty big financial commitment. And it was like either this is going to go one way or it's going to go the other. And if it goes the other, it's not going to be so great. Uh, and the thing that made sense to do, I did not have peace with it. And I brought it to my wife and I said, this makes a lot of sense. Like in the natural, in the, like, if you're just thinking analytically, it makes sense. But I feel like God's telling me don't do that. And I didn't get a reason why. She just said, "Hey, do what you have peace with." She had my back, um, and we did that. And within 1 week, that whole situation was resolved. And I did not. It didn't make sense either that it got resolved. Like it just happened. So anyway, I'm just going off of what you said about God's plan doesn't always make sense to us. I feel like the more that we become dependent on the Holy Spirit, the less we need to know, and the less we're in the driver's seat, and the more we just say, okay, you're prompting me to do that, that's what I'm going to do. And then we find out after that's why it made sense, which is, it's just an interesting balance to the whole, like, you got to have a business plan, you got to think through all these things. Yes, Proverbs says the heart of a man devises a plan, but the Lord directs his steps. Well, he can only direct our steps if we say yes. So we
Exactly.
can have a plan, and plans are wise, but the steps. So anyway, I feel like I'm getting a little off from a question I wanted to ask you about.
That's okay. I just wanted to add
Yeah,
one
go
thing to
for it.
that is, so Jesus said, I don't do anything on my own, but simply listen to where the Father's at work, and I join him at. And that is really essentially what you're just talking about, is like listening to where the prompting is at, whether it makes sense or not. There's several instances where, there's a crowd of people and the disciples are like, Jesus, where the heck are you? Well, no, we're not going back there because this is where the Father wants us today. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, it's different, and I feel like this is something I've been reflecting on. I was just chatting with a friend of mine earlier today about the concept of if you're truly a follower of Jesus versus just a Christian.
yes,
And
100%. You're moving in a direction where He's leading,
there's
not.
a difference, right? And like
Oh yeah,
we're trying to grow up into all things to look like him. We're not just trying to go to church on Sunday and slap a title
agreed.
on our business and say, "Well, it's a Christian business." It's like, no, it's not. Just because a Christian owns it, that doesn't make it, like, are we actually going to run it the way that God would? How would he? Well, Proverbs says a righteous man swears to his own hurt and changes not. So you got to keep your word. That's one thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Even if
and
it's
it's.
like, oh, you know what I mean?
Uh, I do, and it's easy to just slap a name on or a label on it and be like, "Yeah, here it is. This is what it means." But that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and you can hide behind that. Whereas if you're gonna live it, you can't really hide behind that. You have to do it.
Yeah, it's like whether or not we're followers of Jesus, it doesn't really matter what people think. It matters, are you living it? Are you walking it out?
Yeah. How do I
And
live this? How
and
do
it
I? Those are the questions we should be asking.
Yeah, and a disciple, when he's fully formed, will be like his teacher, Jesus says. So the end state is for us to walk as Jesus, and that's a high calling. That's a challenge, right? He didn't consider himself, but he was humble, and he always sought to serve as the Son of God. That's what my friend earlier today was talking about. He's saying he's literally on the cross, actively holding the universe in existence, dying for the sake of a bunch of people who turned their backs on him. Like, that's a level of service. Like, you talk about customer service.
No doubt.
Whoo.
Yeah.
That's a high standard right there.
And then says, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing.
Right? Like, to lay down, that's the crazy thing, is to truly follow Jesus, you got to lay down your right to get offended.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's, sometimes I feel like I like that right to get offended.
Yeah, because then we feel like we deserve something.
Yeah.
For what?
But do we lay down our lives in Christ? Like, do we truly do that? Are we a dead man walking?
Probably. I don't think we do that very successful all the time, but it's definitely something that, the Jesus, that's the standard. I'm just trying to quote it, but I can't find it in my brain right now. Like, the standard of which he holds us to is,
yeah.
Oh, that's what it is. Like, people will know the way to differentiate if we're disciples and following him is like, if we're following him and we're his disciple, we will love one another as he loved us, and he loves the church. So, like, that's the bar, that's the standard. He doesn't just give you love one another, period. It's like, as I have. So then you look at the way he has, and that's the standard right there. He gives you the example.
Well, he even says, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. And then he says, he gives his reign on the just and the unjust, the wicked and the righteous. And you're just like, I got to do good to people who don't like me and who actively want to hurt me.
Exactly.
Yes, you do.
That's the standard.
That is the standard.
That's the standard.
Yeah, and to lift that standard, I think there's one part that we were starting to unpack that I want to get back to too. Imparting some skills in your kids, some business skill, because I think there's a lot of mindset, and it's not a bad mindset, mind you. It was mine, but there's a lot of mindset of, go to school, get a degree, get a job, that type of thing. And in the business world, it's really one of the most fascinating questions that's been in the back of my mind for a couple of years now. I don't have the answer, but I'm closer.
Yeah.
Is what is the difference between the employee mindset and the business mindset? And there's some key things I would say I've noticed. And one is an employee mindset. I'm looking for somebody to take care of me. And a business mindset is I have to create value worth paying for.
Yeah.
And then I've got to go out, a mentor of mine was using this over the weekend, talk with me. He's like, you got to go hunting. You got to go find out where the moose are hanging out, and you got to go bag a moose and bring it home. If you don't go hunting as a business owner, you don't have anything. So he's talking about that. And I think that difference between employee mindset and instilling it in your kids, it's very interesting to me. You had a chance to work at a young age. Work ethic is a huge, powerful part of a business mindset. And honestly, if you're going to succeed as an employee, you got to have a good work ethic.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Honestly, if you have a good work ethic, you're already above everyone, like 90% of people out there. Not saying that they don't, but if you put in that work and with a joyful mindset and just you work, it shows and it reflects in it, whether you are whether you are an employee or whether you are looking to either start or operate and grow a business.
And that's like the first thing I would tell somebody. I completely agree with you. I think you're 100% correct. Is if you're either an employee or a business owner and your question is, how do I run a Christian business? Your first answer is, you should be good at what you do. You should work
Yeah.
hard. You should be good
Yeah.
at it. You should put in the time. You should have an excellent work ethic and hold yourself to a high standard of everything I do is with excellence. I'm not just trying to skate by, not just trying to like, steal the pens from my place of work. And anyway, I'm just saying, like, there's this mindset of like, I'm going to get as much out of this job as I possibly can. They're not paying me enough, so I'm going to take take this home, take that home. It's kind of like this entitlement mindset. I feel like that's dangerous to to a kingdom business mindset.
Yeah. It's the mindset of what can I get versus what can I give back, and how can I serve? Because you can serve if you're not thinking that way, if you're just like, oh, I just want it. I mean, if your company that you're working at is doing that to you, well, it's hard to get out of that but at the same time, even if you're working as an employee with that mindset, you're going to become invaluable to that.
Yeah, that's true. Because there's not a lot of people out there who, they're going to put in the time, they're going to do it right, even if nobody's watching and nobody's holding them accountable. That's different. That should set us apart as followers of Christ, because it's not that we're doing it and Christ is watching. It's like he's doing it with us. He is with us. He is equipping us. He's giving us skill and knowledge and wisdom. Scripture says Jesus has been made to us wisdom in the New Testament. So he is our wisdom. So if we walk in wisdom, that means we're walking like he would walk. So anyway, I think that opportunity to build work ethic at a young age is a really profound thing that, for me, there were different ways I think that my parents expected me to contribute. We had animals, we had a hobby farm. I remember doing chores as early as I can possibly remember. And you did what needed to be done, and you didn't really care.
100%. You do what needs to be done because the animals rely on it. It's the same thing. So in business, you have to do the things that need to be done regardless, because no one else is going to do it until you have people to do that as part of your team. But you just got to do what needs to be done, because it's about more than just the money. Or it's not centered around the money, because there's a greater not calling, but like a greater
perhaps purpose.
Purpose. That's the word. Greater purpose behind it.
Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons I love business as a principle, is because if you start your own business and you add no value to people, you either scam them as long as you can,
yeah, exactly.
or you will go out of business.
You're just elite. Exactly.
And there are businesses that are like that for sure, but none that are going to survive the test of time. And that's a really interesting concept about how you build momentum as a business owner. And one of the best ways, to build momentum is you add value to people, and you give more value than you expect to be paid for. And it will increase, it will compound, it will grow over time. But that concept of that work ethic that you started developing at a young age, I'm just curious, having the chance to grow up in a business family, was there ever a time when you questioned, do I want to run my own business? Do I want to, maybe I want to get a degree in something. Maybe I want to go over here. Like, what was that journey like? Because here you are as the lead of two companies, actually. So I'm just curious if you always knew from a young age, hey, I'm a business owner, that's who I am, or if you thought about different options.
I didn't really ever think. I was raised with a mindset, but I never thought about it. When we were in the car washes, I'm like, well, yeah, I'll work into the car wash. I'll grow into that. But then that ended. That was a season that ended. And then we were into a few different things, and I was kind of heavily into like learning stock market trading and a whole bunch of, stuff like that. But then I through high school, I was consumed with football and whatever, I was just locked into that. And I could have went further, but I lost. I remember in the riding on to a game on the bus, and it was just like I lost the interest. And it's weird because I had a football in my hand for 5 years straight. Everywhere I went, didn't matter. And I was like locked into that. That was where my focus was. But then
Yeah.
I never really thought of going into business. I'm like, I honestly, I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew how to do certain things in carpentry and this and that, like not on a high level, but so I didn't really, honestly, I thinking back, it wasn't on my mind. Um,
Sure.
I knew I wasn't really going to go to college or post-secondary of any sort. Like it just wasn't. There may have been some influence from my dad because he's like, don't go to school, you know. But at the same time, I halfway through high school, honestly, from a young age, I never liked school. I enjoyed the people, I enjoyed the friends, and all of that. But I really wasn't. I wasn't a school like an academic mindset. I just wasn't. So I knew I wasn't going to go to school. Like I don't know what I'll do. And then coming out of that, it was like worked with a different family friend, building houses and stuff, learned how to manage a whole project, building a house, buying a lot,
Wow.
organizing the trades right start to finish when I was 19,
Wow,
18,
that's
19.
an opportunity. That's really cool actually. Was that your kind of first exposure to leading teams, so to speak?
Yeah. So I wasn't really leading like a team, project managing more or less.
Sure. Sure. Well,
Um,
I guess
s-
you know what I mean of like you got to influence somebody to ensure they get the job done at the right time. You're not the lead,
100%.
but
So I had to so this would have been, it wasn't the first year, but the second year, I basically had free reign to hire all the trades. I had to go purchase the lot, sign off on that.
at
I
19,
mean, yeah, not my money.
you must have been a
It
pretty
was a,
you must have for a 19-year-old, you must have had a lot of integrity, been pretty trustworthy.
yes, I guess so. I mean, they thought so. So,
I can't think of a
that's
19-year-old I would want to go buy a lot and manage a whole building project for me. Uh,
yeah, true. Yeah.
and I mean
Well,
that as
so
a
yeah,
compliment. That's kind of cool. It's the
yeah.
first time I've heard
No,
of that young doing something like
I
that.
appreciate that. Like back then, it was just like, hey, this is what we're doing. And I had struggles with that because like some of the trades you deal with tradespeople, plumbers, electricians,
Hmm.
framers, concrete people, like all like the whole thing. We did a bunch of the work, so I learned a lot of physical skills there, like finishing,
Yeah.
hardwood, tile, backfilling, all the stuff that I did learn from prior. But the management process and then hiring everybody, that was more. There's a lot of learning there, and
Did you
you
ever
know
make a bad hire?
in the second house because I couldn't get some of the trades that I wanted because of a few different circumstances. They didn't work out the way I would have liked, but at the same time, yeah, there's a few that was kind of like rushed. We ended up building the house that we're in currently in like 4 months from the time we dug the hole to the time we moved in
Wow.
because we got married. We got married the same year, and so there's a few things that were rushed that probably the timeline was it just anyway, it happened a certain way. But otherwise, like I learned the biggest thing was be organized from the the guy that I was working with because he had done this for years. It's like be organized, plan ahead for everybody else, and try to line everything else up so that they're working around each other and not overlapping. And so then it's just like bang, 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 bang,
Yeah.
and then you can build a house really fast.
Yeah.
um, and high quality. But so like that was a big part of it. And then also learning a good job from a bad job. Um, that was another part of it
Yeah.
because like if you don't know, you don't know, but you need to learn, okay, what is good and what is not. So you need to be immersed in it. So
Yeah. Were you
all of that being said, that pushed me to here and that helped a lot.
Well, it sounds like it. I mean, that's a pretty powerful opportunity especially at that age. Were you managing the budget of the house build as well?
Yep. Yeah, like I had a rough idea of what things were supposed to cost because I shadowed the year before that. Um, and we would go over that and okay, this is what it should be close to, based on previous and what it should be. And then yeah, we basically just built it based on that. So, um, they measured me through that, but the second two houses that we did, were, we weren't building 50 houses. We were just, one, two, but the second two were like, they weren't really involved in it. Like they would help me do some of the physical work,
Okay.
but not the hiring and whatever. Uh, it was so, and I'm like, yeah, it just kind of all worked. I got to pay everybody. I got to, yeah, it's a whole thing. So
Yeah, it's kind of like
they
working as
entrusted it
the,
to me.
in a way, like you're working as a steward. You know?
100%. Yeah, yeah, because I didn't get paid hourly like for that whole project. It was like, okay, well, we'll see what we make on the house. So I that also had the patience, but that patience was there from a younger age.
I mean, that's profound. There's a lot of people who wouldn't be willing to do that opportunity, but it's kind of like a microcosm of business in a way, which is like you're managing this investment, you're managing all these different people, and if you get it to be profitable, great, you get paid. And if you don't, well, sorry, guess we didn't make much money. Uh,
Exactly. Well, and we
huh?
learned, and it's a very tight margin business.
Yeah.
And the market, it depends on the market. So then we were like, okay, well, the realtor made more than us on this house. What are we doing? So then that's when it changes you look at the picture and it's like, okay, does this make sense
Yeah.
or not?
Wow.
So
So then, where did you go next? So out of high school, you're now building houses, managing projects, even doing payroll. Which
yeah,
might, I don't know if you kind of,
loosely.
yeah, it's just
And
such a cool
handing the checks.
opportunity.
Yeah,
Sure.
totally. So from there, um, that was outside of the family business, and then came back to the family
And what
business
was the family
essentially.
business at this point?
At this point, my dad had trucks, so oil field hauling, and we still had we have a self storage.
Hmm.
And actually that, I forgot about that. I had the phone for that, taking all the phone calls in high school in grade 11.
Wow,
So,
you were managing a self
um,
storage business at grade 11. Wow.
yeah. So I had the phone,
Most high schoolers were working at
11, 12.
McDonald's.
I know. And like, those are all opportunities because they were part of the family
Yeah.
business. So I had that opportunity to do it. Uh,
Can I ask you a question about that? So,
yeah.
because from that perspective, right, my perspective of business is very much as an opportunity to be multi-generational.
The
Scripture says a godly man gives an inheritance to his kids, to his grandkids. And I see that as, yes, there's a physical inheritance, but there's also opportunities, but there's also a mindset, a relationship with God, and walking in wisdom. But there's always this. So my dad in high school kind of sat me down and had this conversation with me where he said, my goal is for you to be a wise adult. And he says, I don't want to be telling you when to come home at night. I don't want to be telling you what parties to hang out at. I don't want to be telling
yeah.
you where to get a job or anything like that. My goal is to not tell you anything to do. I'll give you
Right.
advice
Yeah.
every once in a while, but he said you earn that through successively showing responsibility. He said responsibility gets you freedom.
Yeah.
So if you show
Totally.
responsibility, now we didn't have a family business, so there wasn't that kind of opportunity. My dad helped lead a electrical engineering company at the time. But I thought that was also kind of different because I saw a lot of kids that their parents were in different levels of I got to control every single thing you do, or I don't even know what you're doing and I don't care. And I saw kids fall off the deep end, right? But so how did you and your dad get to that kind of, hey, Max is ready. He's gonna
Mm,
take care of this. He's gonna take over this. Was it just kind of a given? or was there any kind of conversation behind that? It's just it's an interesting scenario to.
I honestly can't even remember, but I do know. So I don't think there was a conversation about that, but I was expected to be responsible for a lot of things, and it was a serious topic to be responsible. But I also had naturally the freedom, they never really constrained me a lot. Like I could pretty much do whatever I wanted, but they also, I guess, knew that I wasn't going to just go and
So you had probably just demonstrated that responsibility over time.
yeah, I guess so. Cause we didn't really have a I can't recall a conversation like that,
Okay.
but in high school when I got the phone, it's like, okay, this is kind of the intro to the family business, essentially, is taking that responsibility on and
Was
dealing
there
with
any kind of
customers,
like,
learning.
this is what I expect you to do with the phone kind of thing?
Um, yes, and I can't remember the specifics.
And
It
I
was
don't
like,
need to know the specifics. I'm just curious.
no,
It relates
take
to
care of the customer.
raising up kids to have a business mindset
Yeah,
and to see themselves
yeah.
as managers or stewards and even leadership, because that's something I'm really passionate about. I have a 3-year-old son. He'll turn 4 this year, and I've been thinking,
Mhm.
like, how do I teach him money skills, business skills, give him chance for leadership? And actually, I'm playing with the idea of, do I make him do a sales job? Just like you've got to do it, one sales job, one customer service job, play on a sports team and play around with one musical instrument,
Yep.
just for a couple of
I
months. If you hate it, let's get through it together and we'll save up for your car or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I've been playing around with these ideas of, like, how do I set up my kids to get a business mindset, having not come out of a family business myself. And so this is very interesting to me, and I totally get that some of it was just like subconscious, like it just kind of happened.
Yeah, it did, but I probably just can't remember it. But like I do know that, you know, storage storage customers, the biggest thing is like that was to train me how to talk to customers, essentially. That was my
Mm,
first real touch at that. You're essentially selling.
yeah.
You're selling, but you're also servicing at the same time.
Hmm.
So you're doing both, but you're also meeting people where they're at. Storage people, and I'll try to put this in a nice, like it is a nice way, but like people are always generally in a state of transition. There's very few. So like the people that put their stuff in storage and you never hear about them, it's because they're self-managed. They don't need your help on a lot of things. But people that are going through divorce, deaths in the family, stuff
Yeah.
like that, those are majority of storage people. So you're generally talking to people where they're going through like a very challenging time in their
Never thought
life.
about that in the storage industry. It's never occurred to me, but it makes sense.
That's the majority of the people. So like you have to learn how to talk to people at all levels. They're not always happy, because of the things that
Customers
are going on
aren't.
in their life. So you
Yeah.
have to learn how to level yourself essentially and talk to them so that you can help them through that, even though you're just a storage guy. you know what I mean?
Well, you've always, I
So
mean, every conversation, like, you're a very level-headed guy, but also just like level, I think, emotionally. Um,
um,
and so you've definitely cultivated that, at least in communication.
yeah, and that's probably a part of it. I've never really thought of that, but that probably is because, it's just what it is, and that's from a very long time that I've seen that. So,
yeah.
but like in the business mindset, it's like I wasn't getting paid for that. That was kind of essentially my
Okay.
buy-in. That was my buy-in and my effort into the business. And, we were doing some physical upgrades on the storage at one point. And because in the storage business, if it goes delinquent after so many times that you try to, contact the person, whatever, there's a system that it goes through, and then it's forfeit, and the company owns the whatever's in the unit.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a car in there, and it was an 86 Porsche 944. And this thing was in there for years, like years, probably from 2002 to like 2010, and never been paid for, but we never did anything with it, just sat there. We did some upgrades. My dad's like, all right, you want to get paid or you want the car? I took the car because I was like 15. But like it was getting paid probably would have been way more actually than what the car was worth.
Yeah.
But it's a mindset of value and learning what value is, because I don't know, that was just a dumb little story, but
No,
I just remember
it's
that one.
interesting. It also shows the opportunities when you have a family business. The different things, like my older brother got into software engineering, and it wasn't a family business my dad was working in, but he was able to work out, or I don't remember the details, but basically my brother got an internship at the company for a period of time, and he was able to develop his skill. And so he went into college, basically being a better software engineer than probably most of the students and maybe most of the teachers.
Right. Before he was in there. Yeah.
Before he was in college. So college was kind of a
Yeah.
formality for him. At least that was my perspective, seeing what he came up with and what he would do. So it's just really cool. I think one of the things that people don't realize when you build a family business is you get a chance to give your kids skill sets that otherwise they wouldn't be exposed to,
Oh, totally.
and to help develop mindsets and work ethic and things like that's why I'm so passionate about business, but also like family and doing my best in my way to raise up a generation of dads that are business owners that love their kids, love their wives, love Jesus, because I don't think you can love somebody else without being loved by God first off. So that to me is the foundation of everything. But I see this tremendous opportunity to return to this concept of like family business, and just I guess standing on my soapbox for 1 second more, my going theory right now is that in the land of Israel, when God first established it, so we're talking Joshua's bringing the people into Israel, everybody had their own plot of land and they owned it, and in a sense it was a family business, because you either have flocks and herds or vineyards or olive groves or something. And then, so the idea being, and that's not just Israel, like the idea being having ownership stake in something in a family business is our default state. And the idea of these huge companies with jobs and all that is more of a modern invention. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Because you'd have been just surviving, and that's just part of life.
Yeah, but like outsourcing the education of our kids and just saying, somebody else is going to take care of all of that, all the way up to the high level skill sets they need in life, is a totally different thing. And I think there's just an opportunity there. That's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about business. But it's not just kids. It's also like, how do you upskill? How do you give opportunities for people who work for you to learn, to grow, to become better? That's really, because I was initially on a completely different path than getting into business, but I had a chance to work for a large organization, and I got discipled, mentored, whatever you want to call it, coached. I got thrown into situations where it's like, hey, we got to solve this huge problem. And I know you have no idea what you're doing, but you're going to solve it. And you come to me and we'll talk through it and I'll help you, but it's you. Like, you're on the hook for this.
Right.
And I had people like expect me to step up and to step into that. And I got so blessed by that I started to do that for other people. And that's kind of how I got into business coaching to begin with. Because I was like, man, there's so much opportunity if you have an intentional relationship. If I'm going to pour into somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's why I love business, and I'll put the soapbox back in the drawer. But I see that in, whether it was explicitly stated or not, or it was just kind of the way your dad did things. I see that in you, and I see that you are where you are some of that, a lot of that is because of your dad's willingness to do something risky and have family businesses and those types of things.
And totally. Well, and I think it goes back to even his father. You know,
Okay.
his dad, my grandfather died fairly young, 63. So, you know, I didn't really get to grow up knowing him a whole lot, but I know he came, you know, he was kind of the break in the family chain of alcoholics.
Oh,
So,
okay.
there's a break there when he met the Lord. So, when that happened, everything changed. And then he really tried to, he didn't get everything right. They had a big family, farmed, trucked, did all sorts of stuff. But like, and there's a lot of struggle there. But he was trying things. Like after he kind of came out of his younger days
Hmm.
and met the Lord and growing in faith, he was trying things. But the biggest thing was Jesus. Everybody needs to know about him and, you know, serve the Lord and serve people the way, you know, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're at.
Hmm.
Love that person and be there for that person. You know, I've heard several stories of people all over the country that would know him at this restaurant, that one, all over from trucking and so
Your
like that.
grandfather that you just,
Yeah,
wow.
exactly.
So he had a lot of impact on people.
100%. Yeah. So like what we're doing now, man, my dad's like, man, I would just wish he was here because he'd just be all over it. You know, like, so what we're doing in business and how we're trying to do that. So, anyway, it doesn't mean it doesn't come with struggle with
Sure.
father, son, business stuff, because that
Yeah.
it's not always easy, but it's a matter of figuring that out. And that doesn't always like, it's never a straight line.
Well, I totally agree with you. And I think it's kind of interesting that our conversation went this way because, you know, one of the things I've been reflecting on a lot is, especially North America, it's not just the US, it's Canada too, but we're a nations of immigrants. So there's a kind of this like mindset of I need to go out, I need to make a name for myself, I need to go do something, move away from the family. Like there's this kind of like this
Right.
perspective, and I feel like that there's a lot of people that I knew growing up who had family businesses, and a solid half of them had the mindset of I can't wait to get away from this.
Yeah.
And then there
Well,
were
see,
there were another chunk
yeah,
that were like, "This is what I'm going to do. I love this. This is amazing." And I feel like neither's right or wrong necessarily, because sometimes, yeah, you're not called to be part of that. That isn't the giftings or or talents that God's given you. You are called to do something else. That's totally okay. But I think there's both approaches, and I think you can't just throw it away without
no,
learning the good from it, if that makes sense.
I agree. Yeah, completely. Because, you know, um, uh, yeah, I do know people that they, you know, one example, uh, one person I know, he was asking me like, you know, what was it like for growing up in the family business? Because I was asking him the same thing. And, you know, for me, it was like, it was always an option. And I think that's really what my dad wanted. And I'm not doing it because he wanted me to do it. I probably did at some point, but, you know, I went through ups and downs to figure out, okay, where am I going? What am I doing? And where is my heart going to be? And then this, you know, the way that the Lord kind of laid it out, this is the direction. So, but he was telling me that like it was totally different for him. And I'm like, okay, like how? And he's like, well, my dad would always tell me, you know, you need to go do something different. He didn't, for the last, he said 15 years before he went into college and stuff, it was like, don't do what I'm doing, go do something different. Not necessarily said that way, but like that was like, yeah, I'm thinking of doing something different. I'm thinking of doing something different. So the pressure was always for them to go on their own, do something else, figure it out, and never, you know, whether the option was there or not, it wasn't presented or it wasn't
Interesting.
open to them. And I'm like, that's, you know, so when he told me that, he's like, yeah, he said, I just had a completely different experience. And I'm like, and when he told me that, I'm like, wow, that's very interesting. But like, I don't think it's for everybody.
I totally
when
agree
it
with you. Yeah, I don't
when
think
it
it is.
can work, there's periods of time where I'm like, I don't know if I'm actually meant to be in the family business with my dad because it's just for right now, it's just kind of difficult. But but
I think
you
everybody
have
goes
to,
through that.
yeah. And I'm growing up. He's figuring out what the deal is with me too, growing up, and like, what am I gonna be and what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And how to like balance the
So where are
roles.
you
I
right
think.
now? Because I don't even think I know I introduced you as the CEO of two companies, which is true. But can you like what was that key decision moment for you where you said, okay, I built houses, that was fun. I'm going to start getting back involved in the family's trucking business. I know I'd love to hear the story of like, TriPak and how did you guys get into that business too? So because I feel like
So
that's two
yeah,
separate decisions. Like we're going to get into this business, and then
yeah.
you saying, all right, I'm going to sign up for this for the foreseeable future. I want to make this thing work.
So basically, like, I'll try to quickly summarize. Trucking, we were using TriPak products. Straight up. We were like, yeah, it's working, it's not working. I don't know. We quit using it, and then we're like, okay, tried using it again. Yeah, it's making a difference. Okay, it's legit. So and then we were going to buy the product, couldn't buy it because the owner was like 95, passed away, and then the son was like, yeah, we're done. We're not making any more product. You can't buy it anymore. So it was a shutdown. Keep in mind, this company's been running since 1976, so
Was it the
it
the
has some
one owner
history.
running it since '76?
It went broke in 1984. They sold it to the Canadian guy. He was involved with it before, but and then he ran it from 84 to 2015
Wow,
when he passed away. So then
30 years. Wow.
exactly. So then we were just buying. We were just a customer, and then my dad's like, well, he wasn't very far away from where the owner or like where TriPak was. So he's like, well, if you're around, maybe I'll just come out and have a look. I want to see this stuff. And yeah, sure, why not? So I went out and chatted, looked around, showed him the other products that we didn't know about. We only knew about one. And then my dad's like, well, what do you want for the business? Like basically he's offered it up and they wrote up a deal there.
Wow.
I don't know if it was a napkin or a small piece of paper, but like a tentative rough idea. And then we were able to just work through that. And then a year later, bought the company basically. So that's that. We kind of sort of started the lighting business about a year prior to that. The same year we finished the house and got married, and started buying some lights, try to figure out how we're going to do this. We were importing, and I'm like, why were we doing that? I just like lights. So I just started sourcing, trying to figure out, okay, how do we get these things,
Mhm.
How do we do this for our own trucks? But then, oh man, we can sell this stuff because everybody likes lights. At least guys do. And so, and this is light bars and stuff like that for vehicles.
Yeah.
So we kind of started softly, and there was a guy renting the storage unit from us doing the same thing. He's like, why don't you just buy me out? I want to move on from this. So we bought that out. And then it was like, okay, this has to go. You're not getting anything out of this until we're paid back. Like the money's paid off and we're ahead. And well, we're making money. I'm still not taking anything out of it, but because we want to grow it further and get more people involved.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so that's the lighting. So I started doing that. TriPak came along a year later. Keep in mind, my mom was like, no more businesses. And then my dad comes home. Yes. Just one more. We got to have a conversation about this because this is something
So at that
that,
point, you guys had the storage facility. You had a closed down, you weren't involved in the washing, the car wash anymore.
no, that was gone.
So that was
That's
gone.
sold.
So you had the storage
Yeah.
facility, you had a trucking business, you had an LED business, lighting business, and your mom is just like, "Hey, we're done. Like, stop getting us into more business." And did he come home with a, "Hey, I bought a business," or was it, "I want to buy a business"?
No, it was like, I think it just made a deal. But hear me out.
Open a bottle of
And
wine, grab a cup of coffee.
yeah, pretty much. Honestly, I remember the conversation. He's like, because I was in agreement with my mom. And then when this happened, I'm like, no. I'm like, no, no, no. And then when we saw it, I'm like, man, oh man, that's a good deal. And that is the potential with that is, man, it was just like,
So what
so
sold you
we,
on it? What was like the, oh man.
like the way that the product worked. I mean, the company
Did he come back
had
with
shut,
some samples or did you just explain it or?
I think both.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, the fact that there had been several tries to sell the company already, nobody bought it. The type of product that it was, and then we're like, so the price was right, basically.
Sure.
The sales were gone, everything was gone. So we were buying formulas and whatever that weren't going to ever get used again, and the brand, the
Wow.
trademark, and everything. So we basically bought the trademark, a few blending tanks, formulas, a couple other things, a little bit of raw material, and that was it.
Wow.
And then we had to figure it out. I didn't realize the amount that we were going to have to learn, but at the same time, I still believe fully that it's a product that can help people, and it's just unique, it's different, and it's a way to connect with a lot of different people. And so,
That
that's
was that was
where that
2015, so it's been almost 10 years.
April 2016 is the close date, like when we own
Okay.
it. So April
So
1st.
9 years in a
So
couple months.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so like that led us to that. And then, we were still working, all the businesses, trying to figure it out. And then there's, the trucking was kind of struggling. We're going through some stuff. My dad was going through a lot at that point. And I wouldn't say those were the best years. They were
Sure.
tough. They were tough years.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you know what? I just need to focus on this here. Like, TriPak performance kind of took a back seat, honestly, for a few years there, where I had a plan to grow it, and then it kind of plateaued. And I'm like, well, it is okay, but we didn't have enough time and resources to do both and grow both.
Yeah.
And we're
Makes
still
sense.
spread thin. But I'm like, you know what? I need to back up from some of this because I don't know if it's going to work for me to stay in the family business at that point. It was a stressful time.
Sure.
So I'm like, all right,
I mean, that's
we're
that's
going to
the
just go
real
this direction.
that's the real life aspect of it.
That's basically straight to it. And so with TriPak, I'm like, you know what? And I was telling my wife, Ashley, we're just going to focus on this. Keep in mind, she does all the graphics for all of our branding, marketing, everything.
Yeah, she does a great
So I'm like,
job.
we just need to focus on this and see where that goes. I'm going to kind of back away from the trucking and some of this other stuff. And there's a few things that happened to lead me to that. But and so then that's kind of where I kind of just went down this road. And
Yeah.
then we ended up having to sell off all the trucking and everything else. And that was 2021, I think.
Oh,
And
wow.
then it
Okay.
kind of somewhere in that ballpark. Um,
I think for some
and
reason I
then
had thought that was earlier, but wow.
Yeah, no, 2021. And then my dad, I mean, my dad's still doing little projects, but like kind of cleaning up a bunch of that. That took a long time. And by that point, we had already kind of like built relationships in the US and with a few different people and kind of grown the purchasing to marketing, like the basic level marketing and like there's different aspects. So I was kind of immersed in all of it. And now, with the trucks being on, my dad's kind of coming back into that
Yeah.
a few years ago now, but like, and so now it's not, I didn't want
So it
really the
sounds like
position.
it was like a bit of a gradual process, and there's a lot of different
100%.
things that came to making that decision. Because when I first started chatting with you, you're like, "Hey, this is what I want to do for you know a couple of decades and maybe have my kids in the business, like, that was kind of your mindset a year ago when you and I got connected. But it sounds like there wasn't like a moment of decision. It was more so the picture's getting clearer over time, which is it's actually a profound lesson, because in business, in any business, you never have the full picture from the beginning. Like a business plan is a guess. And there's a benefit in the plan, but I think having the permission to have a concept and move in a direction and let it get clearer over time is a really profound attitude to have. Or
I believe so too.
Early.
There's like aspects of that are clear, but not the whole picture. And I would say that's still true.
For sure. I don't know that ever goes away.
Definitely not.
So let me ask you
I would
this.
agree with that.
Do you feel like you were prepared super, super well to be able to lead the company? Do you feel like there were aspects where, there were things that yes, that's exactly what I expected it would be, or other things that maybe it was a little bit different than you expected? You know what I mean? Like, I think having the reality hit of, okay, I'm leading this thing now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely because it happened gradually.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what I do. So I don't really feel like I'm in charge of it. And I don't really feel like it's very interesting because there wasn't like a defining moment. Okay, you're in charge. Okay, now I have the authority.
Sure.
That didn't really happen. This is like, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Figure it out.
Just solving problems.
Solving problems. That's one thing I will say. Be resourceful.
Yeah.
Like being resourceful to source, to sell, to be resourceful. Like figure it out. If you don't know, just start going and figure it out, because that is you don't have the whole picture, but move in a direction. And then all of a sudden, I believe that's how God works to lead us through things. He'll give us, we can see enough to take the next step. And we don't necessarily know it's the right direction, but just keep going step by step, day by day. And so, sorry, what was the question?
Well, it was a pretty good answer. I was just curious if you found it to be what you expected stepping into that leadership role, or if there are parts of it where you're like, well, I signed up for more than I thought, but we're going to figure it out, that kind of thing. I was just curious.
I think it makes it both. I definitely think, yep, we're going to do this, get her done. I thought we would be way further along than where we're at. But then I look back now and I'm like, I don't know how we would have been further along, because like the things that we've done, we probably could have sped up certain ways, certain times, but like the things that we've had to learn in order to do what we're doing now at the level that we're doing. Like we do way more of the production and manufacturing than we did when we started, but it's also given us more control and more knowledge. But like there's not really anybody to learn from here, especially. So we've had to just figure it out. And that's the way my dad thinks. It's the way I've been raised. It's like, well, if you don't know, just, okay, let's just figure it out. Like that's what he's good at. He's the one that figures things out. And so like, I would say he's definitely far better than I am, but I do have those qualities.
Yeah, I would
just not at that level.
I would say thinking about the employee versus business mindset, the do whatever it takes versus do your best, right? I don't know if you've ever heard that, but the idea of, how do you approach a job, or how do you approach business? I do my best. Well, what if your best isn't good enough? What if you don't know what needs to happen? What if you don't have the skill set? That's where the, do my best might be a good employee mindset, but do whatever it takes is an absolute business mindset necessity. And then we just figure it out. I mean, that's a testament to your dad and to you and to your ingenuity. But so let me close up with these two questions. Okay. So I want to hear your advice to young guys out there that are thinking of starting a business. They're maybe they've been in a family business or something like that. You guys have started multiple businesses, some of which very successful, and some long term, others of which I think you got in, got out, depending, right? So you've seen multiple businesses be started. What would be your advice be to somebody who's thinking, I want to get into this business thing? Like what's your biggest piece of advice?
I think the first part of it, I mean, business and money, they're intertwined. Don't I would say the first, probably one of the things the direction I was taking originally was all money focused. I don't really know why, but it was definitely, and that's coming back from high school and then coming out of that, I probably learned the qualities of what it to be more service minded above that. And I really always wanted that, but at the same, I knew that, but didn't necessarily, wasn't at my core drive. The money was definitely higher on the list. So, but I would say the need and the service to the customer and like the desire to help others should be number one. I would say that would be the motivating factor, because if that will help to refine the type of product you're going to sell or the service you're going to provide, and make sure, because if you're just going to sell a widget or something to make money, you're not really, there's no heart behind it. There's no like, there's a word for it and I'm not finding it, but like it loses the culture, it loses the, it's cold.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying, if you're thinking about starting a business, do something you're passionate about that meaningfully
guaranteed.
Matters and helps people.
100%.
That's
because then you're going to naturally become the best at that, because you want to do better.
Yeah.
And you want to, because the service of the customer is the most important thing. The money will come and it'll be a part of that. It's more of a, what would you call it? A benefit from it. And it's a tool. The money is a tool. It's not the goal.
Yeah. I think that's really profound. And I've noticed that myself, is if you approach even a sales conversation and, me getting your money is the goal, it doesn't really work. But me helping you get something you want anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it works, right?
Then it works.
Because the goal,
and it's a fair exchange.
And that's actually why I'm like super excited about kingdom business or Christians in business, is because I think it actually is more aligned than perhaps the world's perspective of business, is to say, if our goal is we're going to meaningfully help people, we're going to improve people's lives in a meaningful way, and the approach is service from the start, then, by necessity, you've created value, you reap value. So you're making a profitable business that way. That's the heart of every profitable business, regardless of if people know God or not. It has to serve people in a meaningful way. It has to add value to people. So that, and I love the part that you brought in about do something you're passionate about. Because I think there's a lot of people out there who are like, okay, what's the next quick, easy, gimmicky way that I don't have to put in hours and I can make money? And it's like, that's not going to work long term.
Easy. It's so easy to fall into that mindset, though.
Yeah.
And like falling into it, but like, the lighting, it's like, oh man, we can make money on this, but it's also like, I like lights. All my friends like lights. Let's sell lights. Let's put light into this world, but like, in two senses. But the passion has to be there, because I'll tell you one thing. This is something that, then this comes from my dad's experience, but I've observed it, and it's helped me with a lot of decisions for like, okay, some people they have a great idea and they want to go public with it. Public companies have no heart. They have no soul. They're very cold, and it is literally money focused at the core, because you have, not saying that public companies can't do good and do well and have that. But like 90%, probably 99% of what I've observed and or been a part of with what my dad's been a part of for real, they you've got shareholders that want dividends and returns, and they really don't care about the service and the heart behind the product to the customer.
Yeah.
There's no service. So then the CEO and the executive staff and everybody, it's all about the numbers. So like if you're gonna do it, make sure it's something you want to do. Think about something you would want to do for the rest of your life instead of just selling out or going
Yeah.
public because you get a big payout. Because everybody tells me, I don't know how many people over the years have been like, oh yeah, grow it up, sell it to some big company like WD-40 or whatever, or go public and get a payout and boom, you're set. I'm like, why? And then they look at me like I got rocks in my head, and I'm like, I want to do this for the rest of my life because I like doing it. And the people I get to meet are wonderful. And there's new ones all the time. And I just love hearing stories coming back from products. Why wouldn't I want to do that for the rest of my life? And I wouldn't want to just give it away to one of those soulless companies, basically.
That's one of the reasons, I'll be honest, I love TriPak. I love your company so much. And I love, being able to connect with you. And I was excited to have you on the podcast is because there's a purpose, there's a meaning there. And, I know we didn't talk about the product extensively. I know you're planning to do more
Okay.
with like TriPak in podcast form and stuff like that. People, if you check the description below, I'm going to have links to his website as well as social media if you want to learn more about what the company actually does. But the cool thing about it is it's not a family owned company in name. It is a family company that
That's a good
truly
way to put it.
cares about people, puts people first, and makes the product, because you guys were blessed by the product, so you couldn't let it go out of business, which is really, it's just
Exactly.
a really cool story. And I think it's important to follow the breadcrumbs that God gives us.
Yeah.
And
And that's exactly what this is. God placed it in our hands. And that's why, ultimately, why my dad brought it home. He's like, this, I believe, is, God has placed this in our hands. We would be not doing what he wants to just let it go.
yeah, but that's just really cool to be willing to say, okay, I'm going to walk through the door that's being opened in front of me.
Exactly. Not knowing where it's going to lead to.
Yeah, man. Do you have anything else on your mind, just to encourage people um, about why building a business can be worth it?
I think building something is rewarding, at least if it's your personality. I don't know, like I think when you struggle through something, trying to figure it out or build something from where like starting it or starting over or from nothing to something, and then an effect on a group of people or customers or whatever,
Yeah,
and employees, whatever, your team. So there's a major reward in that and like fulfillment in that instead of just um like it all being easy. So like I'm not discounting that it there's periods that will be, because I believe that there is, but I do believe that when you have to work through something,
hmm,
and that's where the work ethic comes into, it's rewarding because you're not just like, oh, it's just bang bang, oh, it's easy, no big deal. There's no reward to that. It's
yeah,
like you struggle through something, you're like, man, it's frustrating. In the middle of it, you're like, I don't know how the heck we're gonna do this. I don't know where it's gonna end up. It might just maybe just throw it out. But then when you work through that and then you see result or see a progression, I would say progression, then it's like, okay, I made it through that. Now we can make it through the next step.
yeah. Wow.
I would say that just work through it and don't give up.
I feel like that's the pioneer spirit of I'm gonna go somewhere new. I'm gonna build something that hasn't existed before. but it can be a benefit for family. It can be a benefit for the community. It can be benefit, for the customers, for the employees. When you do business God's way, it's a win-win-win for everybody, right? It's not just a win for the owner, but it's a win for the employees, and it's a win especially for the customers, and a whole community can be blessed by being able to be part of that. And I think that's one of the things that sets apart doing business God's way. It's doing life with God.
It's doing life
with Jesus.
Exactly. Totally. Amen.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Max. It's always
a
pleasure. I look forward to our next one. Awesome. Guys, if this blessed you, make sure to comment below. I want to hear something that stuck out to you that you got from it, that you enjoyed. Share this with somebody who's thinking about starting a business, or who's been running a business for a while and just needs a shot in the arm of encouragement. And make sure to subscribe to catch our next episode.